Welcome back to HOA Clapback. She called it standards and used it like a weapon. Welcome. Settle in, because this one gets wild fast. You are on camera now, Pamela screamed across my front yard, jabbing her finger at the doorbell camera mounted by my garage. The HOA owns the airspace, and your fence is invading it. I stood there holding a bundle of fence pickets I had just unloaded from my truck, staring at her reflective safety vest and the laminated policy sheet she waved like a sword. The vest made her look official, which I knew was the point. She wanted my contractor to think she had real authority. The fence in question was a 6-foot cedar privacy panel on the south edge of my property in Portland, Oregon. It had been rotting for 2 years, and I finally hired a contractor to replace the damaged section. The permit was approved by the city. The work was scheduled to start this afternoon. But Pamela White, the Community Standards Chair for Rosewood Commons Association, decided the fence violated an easement that did not exist. I work as a cybersecurity analyst, which means I save every email, every timestamp, every document, and every interaction log. The moment Pamela showed up last week with her first violation notice, I started building a file. Now she was back, angrier, louder, and wearing that ridiculous vest like she was a city inspector. "Your contractor does not have authorization to be here," she snapped. "I am issuing a stop work order effective immediately." "There is no stop work authority in the covenants," I said calmly. "The city issued the permit. You can call them if you want." Her face went red. "If you make me repeat myself, it gets more expensive." She shoved the laminated sheet toward my face. It had dense paragraphs printed on both sides, but I had already seen it. It was a 2-year-old memo about landscaping approvals, not fence setbacks. She was using it like a prop, hoping I would not read it. My contractor, a quiet guy named Luis, stood by his truck watching the whole scene. He had a paintbrush in his hand, dripping white primer onto a drop cloth spread across my driveway. He looked at me, then at Pamela, then back at me. "You want me to pack up?" he asked. "No," I said. "She does not have enforcement authority. Finish the prep work." Pamela took a step closer. "Keep arguing," she hissed. "You are making my case for me." That line hit me wrong. I realized she was building a narrative where my pushback became proof of defiance. It was a setup. If I argued, she would write me up for hostility. If I complied, she would claim I admitted guilt. Either way, she won. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. "I am recording this interaction for my records," I said. Her expression shifted. She smiled, tight and mean. "Good. Make sure you get my face. I want the board to see exactly who is enforcing compliance here." She turned and walked back toward the clubhouse, her safety vest glowing under the streetlights. Before she disappeared around the corner, she called over her shoulder. "You have 24 hours to submit a revised site plan or the daily fines start. Check your email." Luis looked at me. "She serious?" "Yes," I said. "But she is wrong about the easement. I have the recorded plat. I just need to prove it before she buries me in paperwork." The permit inspection was scheduled for this afternoon. If I missed it, the job would be delayed by at least 2 weeks and the contractor would charge me a rescheduling fee. I could not afford that, and Pamela knew it. This was not about rules. It was about control. I went inside and opened my laptop. The violation notice had arrived in my inbox 6 minutes ago. It was a formal PDF with the Rosewood Commons Association letterhead and a list of alleged infractions: fence encroachment into common area airspace, unapproved construction activity, failure to submit advance notice, Each line had a citation reference that looked official but meant nothing when I cross-checked the actual covenants. I pulled up the recorded plat from the county website. The property line was clear. My fence sat 8 inches inside my boundary. There was no easement on this edge. Pamela had either misread the plat or she was lying on purpose. I saved the plat as a PDF and attached it to a reply email. I kept the tone professional. I wrote that the fence was fully within my property boundaries, that the city permit was valid, and that I expected the stop work claim to be withdrawn immediately. I hit send and copied the management company. 2 minutes later, my gate access code stopped working. I tried the code 3 times. Each attempt gave me a red error beep. I walked back to the truck and told Luis. He frowned. "You think she did that?" "Yes," I said. "She is trying to make me look non-compliant. If I cannot access the community amenities, she can claim I am violating residency terms." This was Rosewood Commons, a place where normal life became an enforcement opportunity. The HOA claimed authority over anything near easements, setbacks, paint colors, landscaping schedules, and even the timing of contractor arrivals. The board operated like a small government with no oversight. Pamela was the enforcer, and she loved it. I called the management company. The line rang 4 times before a recorded message played. Office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. For emergencies, press 1. I pressed 1. A dispatcher answered and I explained the situation. Gate access revoked without notice. Contractor on site. Permit inspection in 3 hours. The dispatcher sighed. "That sounds like a board action. You will need to file a formal appeal and wait for the next hearing." "When is the next hearing?" I asked. 2 weeks from Thursday. I hung up. Pamela had timed this perfectly. She knew the management company would not intervene on a Friday afternoon. She knew I could not wait 2 weeks. She was boxing me into a corner where my only option was to comply with her fake rules. Luis finished loading his tools into the truck. "You want me to come back Monday?" he asked. "No," I said. "I will fix this today." I walked toward the clubhouse. A security guard stood near the door, a middle-aged man in a gray uniform with a radio clipped to his belt. He watched me approach but did not move. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I need to speak with Pamela White," I said. "She is not available right now." I held up my phone. "She just revoked my gate access without notice. That is a violation of the residency agreement. I need it restored immediately." The guard shrugged. "You will need to submit a written request to the board." I stared at him. This is retaliation. She is blocking my contractor because I would not comply with a fake easement claim. He looked uncomfortable but stayed in place. "I do not handle board disputes. You will need to go through the process." I turned and walked back to my property. I needed leverage. Pamela was using procedural warfare, and I had to fight back with the same tools. I opened my laptop again and drafted a formal complaint to the management company. I attached the recorded plat, the city permit, the violation notice, and a timeline of every interaction with Pamela. I documented the gate access revocation and noted the exact time it happened. I requested an emergency review and copied the entire board. Then I called my neighbor, a woman named Rachel who lived 2 doors down. She had caught Pamela on her doorbell camera one night last month, walking through backyards near my property line with a flashlight and a clipboard. Rachel had saved the footage and offered to share it if I ever needed proof of harassment. "Rachel," I said when she answered, "I need that video." She laughed. "She finally went after you?" "Yes. Gate access, stop work threats, fake easement claims, The whole package. I will send it over, Rachel said, and I will testify if you need me at a hearing. She has been pulling this garbage for 2 years. Someone needs to stop her. The footage arrived in my inbox 10 minutes later. I watched it 3 times. Pamela was clearly visible, walking along the back fence line with her flashlight, stopping every few feet to take notes. She was measuring something, or pretending to. The timestamp showed 2 in the morning. No legitimate HOA business happens at 2 in the morning. I added the video to my complaint file and hit send again. The sun was setting. Luis had packed up and left. The fence panels were still stacked by my driveway, waiting for installation. The permit inspector was scheduled to arrive in 90 minutes. If I missed the inspection window, I would lose the permit and have to reapply. That meant more fees, more delays, and more chances for Pamela to interfere. I stood in my front yard and stared at the fence line. The old panels were rotting at the base, sagging against the posts. The new panels were clean and straight, ready to go up. All I needed was 3 hours of work and a signed inspection form. But Pamela had turned it into a crisis. My phone buzzed. An email from the management company. We have received your complaint and will review the matter at the next available board meeting. Please refrain from further construction activity until the dispute is resolved. I read the message twice. They were siding with Pamela by default. No investigation, no emergency intervention, just a polite instruction to stop. This was how the HOA worked. Residents had no power. The board controlled everything, and the management company rubber-stamped whatever the board wanted. I called the city permit office. A clerk answered and I explained the situation. HOA interference, revoked access, stop work threat. The clerk listened and then said the city permit overrides HOA restrictions as long as the work complies with municipal code. If the HOA tries to block a valid permit, you can file a complaint with the Code Enforcement Division. I thanked her and hung up. That gave me a legal angle, but it would take days to process. I needed something faster. I opened the covenants document on my laptop and searched for the enforcement procedures section. It was buried on page 47. The language was dense and bureaucratic, but one paragraph stood out. All enforcement actions require written notice with a 14-day cure period before fines or penalties may be assessed. Immediate stop work orders are prohibited except in cases of imminent safety hazards as determined by a licensed inspector. I read it again. Pamela had skipped the 14-day cure period. She had issued the stop work order without a safety inspection. She had violated the HOA's own enforcement rules. I stared at the violation letter on my desk and smiled, because it proved exactly what I suspected. She was cutting corners on purpose, banking on the assumption that I would not read the covenants or challenge her authority. But I had read them. I had the proof. And now I had the leverage. I drafted another email to the management company and the board. I quoted the enforcement procedures section verbatim. I noted that Pamela had violated the 14-day cure requirement and issued an unlawful stop work order. I requested immediate restoration of my gate access and withdrawal of all penalties. I attached a copy of the enforcement policy showing Pamela was skipping required steps on purpose. If you are enjoying this nightmare, hit like and subscribe for more HOA chaos and unbelievable neighborhood battles. The reply came back in under an hour. This time it was from a different address, a board member named Greg. He wrote that the matter would be reviewed at an emergency session on Monday morning and that my gate access would be restored pending the outcome. He did not apologize. He did not acknowledge Pamela's violations, but he backed down. I called Luis. Monday morning, 8 a.m. Be ready to work fast." He agreed. I spent the weekend organizing my evidence file and preparing for the hearing. Rachel sent me a signed affidavit describing what she had seen on her doorbell footage. Another neighbor, a retired engineer named Tom, offered to testify that Pamela had threatened him with fines last year over a mailbox post that was perfectly compliant. The pattern was clear. Pamela used fear and procedural complexity to bully residents into submission. On Monday morning, I arrived at the clubhouse at 7:30. The emergency session was scheduled for 8. I wore a gray hoodie and carried a folder with printed copies of every document in my file. Pamela was already there, standing near the entrance with her reflective safety vest and a clipboard. She saw me and smiled. "You showed up," she said. "I was hoping you would skip it. Makes my job easier." I walked past her without responding. Inside, the boardroom was small and sterile. 5 chairs arranged around a conference table. Greg sat at the head. 2 other board members flanked him. Pamela took a seat across from me. Greg cleared his throat. "We are here to review the enforcement action taken by Pamela White regarding the fence construction at Lot 73. Pamela, can you summarize your position?" Pamela opened her clipboard. "The fence encroaches on a drainage easement that runs along the southern property line. The resident failed to submit an advanced site plan. The contractor was operating without HOA authorization. I issued a stop work order to protect community assets." I leaned forward. "There is no drainage easement on the southern line. I have the recorded plat. The fence is 8 inches inside my boundary, and the covenants require a 14-day cure period before any enforcement action. You skipped that." Pamela did not blink. "The easement is implied by the common area designation in Section 12. I pulled out the printed plat and slid it across the table. "Show me where." She stared at the document. Her face went tight. "This is a county plat. It does not include HOA restrictions." "Correct," I said, "because there are no HOA restrictions on my southern line. You fabricated the easement claim." Greg looked at Pamela. "Is that true?" She straightened. "I was acting on the guidance of a prior board interpretation." I pulled out the enforcement policy and slid that across the table too. "Then why did you skip the 14-day cure period? Why did you revoke my gate access without a hearing? Why did you issue a stop work order without a licensed safety inspection?" Pamela opened her mouth, then closed it. Greg picked up the policy and read the highlighted paragraph. He looked at Pamela. "This says immediate stop work orders are prohibited." She leaned back. "I was protecting the association from liability." "You were retaliating," I said, "and I have proof." I pulled out Rachel's affidavit and the doorbell footage still frame. "I also have a neighbor who caught you surveying my property at 2 in the morning. No legitimate enforcement happens at 2 a.m. Pamela's face went red. That was a routine compliance check. "At 2 a.m., I repeated. Greg set the papers down. "Pamela, I think we need to table this and review the enforcement procedures. In the meantime, I am restoring gate access and withdrawing the stop work order. The resident can proceed with the permitted work." Pamela stood up. "If you undermine my authority, no one will follow the rules." Greg stared at her. "Sit down." She sat. The meeting ended 5 minutes later. I walked out with my folder and headed home. Luis was already waiting in my driveway with his truck and tools. We started work immediately. The old fence panels came down in under an hour. The new panels went up clean and straight. The permit inspector arrived at noon and signed off without a single issue. But Pamela was not done. That afternoon, a bright orange tow warning sticker appeared on Luis's truck windshield. It claimed the vehicle was parked in an unauthorized zone and would be towed if not moved within 1 hour. Luis called me from the driveway. "You seeing this?" I walked outside. The sticker was official looking, printed on glossy stock with a phone number at the bottom. I called the number. A dispatcher answered. "This is Northside Towing. How can I help you?" "I have a contractor working on my property and someone put a tow warning on his truck." "Who authorized that?" The dispatcher paused. "Let me check the log." "What is the address?" I gave it to her. She put me on hold. When she came back, her tone had changed. "We do not have any tow requests for that address. Sounds like someone used our sticker without authorization. That is illegal." I thanked her and hung up. I peeled the sticker off and took a photo. Then I called the management company again and reported the fake tow threat. The dispatcher took my complaint and said it would be forwarded to the board. I asked if Pamela could issue tow warnings, and the dispatcher said no. Only the management company or law enforcement can authorize towing. If a board member issued a fake town notice, that is harassment. I sent the photo and the dispatcher's statement to Greg by email. He replied within 10 minutes. "This is unacceptable. I will address it directly with Pamela." The fence work finished by 3 p.m. Luis packed up and left. The new panels looked perfect. Clean lines, no rot, full compliance with the permit. I stood in my backyard and took a photo for my records. Then I went inside and wrote a detailed timeline of every interaction with Pamela. Fake easement claims. Skipped enforcement steps. Gate access retaliation. Fake tow threats. Harassment footage at 2 a.m. I had it all documented. But the real payoff came 2 days later. I was checking my email when I saw a message from Tom, the retired engineer neighbor. He had forwarded me a recording from the previous month's board meeting. The subject line said, "You need to hear this." I opened the audio file and listened. It was a discussion about enforcement policy changes. Pamela's voice was clear. She was proposing new rules that would allow immediate fines without a cure period for repeat violations. Greg pushed back. He said the covenants required due process and a 14-day window. Pamela argued that repeat offenders did not deserve a cure period because they already knew the rules. Then another board member, a woman named Sandra, asked a question. "Pamela, how many board members were present when we voted on the enforcement expansion last year?" Pamela hesitated. 4. Sandra continued. "The bylaws require a quorum of 5 for any policy vote. If we only had 4, that vote was invalid." There was silence on the recording. Then Greg spoke. "If the enforcement expansion vote was invalid, then all the actions taken under that authority are also invalid. That includes immediate stop work orders and expedited fines." The recording ended. I sat back and stared at my screen. The entire enforcement wave that Pamela had been running for the past year was built on an invalid vote. Every fine, every stop work order, every threat she had issued was legally void. I forwarded the recording to the management company with a formal request for a full audit of Pamela's enforcement actions. I also requested reimbursement for the gate access downtime and the contractor rescheduling fees I had incurred because of her interference. The management company replied the next morning. They were launching an internal review. Pamela was being placed on a no-contact directive pending the outcome. Residents were instructed to report any further contact from her directly to the company. That same afternoon, I hired a professional surveyor to come out and mark the property line with stakes and string. I wanted an official record that would shut down any future easement claims. The surveyor arrived on Friday with a truck full of equipment. He set up a tripod near the back fence and started taking measurements. Pamela appeared 10 minutes later. She walked across the yard with her clipboard and her safety vest, heading straight for the surveyor. I followed her. "Excuse me," she said to the surveyor. "You do not have authorization to work here." The surveyor looked at her, then at me. "I have authorization from the property owner. That is all I need." "This is common area," Pamela snapped. "You are trespassing." The surveyor pulled out a printed plat and unfolded it on the hood of his truck. "This is the recorded boundary. The line runs here." He pointed to a string he had already pulled tight between two stakes. "Everything on this side is private property. You are standing on it right now." Pamela stared at the string. "That is not accurate. The easement extends another 6 feet." The surveyor shook his head. "There is no easement on this parcel. If you have documentation that says otherwise, show me and I will verify it. But this plat is current as of last week. If you disagree, you need to file a formal boundary dispute with the county." Pamela turned to me. "You are wasting money on this. It is already approved." "Nothing was approved," I said. "You made it up." She stepped closer to the tripod. The surveyor held up a hand. "Do not touch the equipment. If you move the tripod, I have to start over and the property owner gets charged for the extra time." Pamela ignored him and reached toward the tripod leg. The surveyor stepped in front of her. I said, "Do not touch it. If you interfere with a licensed survey, that is a criminal offense. I can call the sheriff right now." Pamela froze. Her face went from red to white. She looked at me, then at the surveyor, then back at the tripod. She took a step back. "I am reporting this," she said. "Good," the surveyor replied. "Make sure you include your name so they know who tried to tamper with the equipment." She turned and walked away. The surveyor finished his work in under 2 hours. He gave me a signed boundary certificate with the exact measurements and a map showing the fence line 8 inches inside my property. No easement, no encroachment, no violation. I took the certificate to the next board meeting and presented it during the open comment period. I also played the audio recording proving the enforcement vote had been invalid. I handed Greg a printed packet with every piece of evidence, every timestamp, every email, every fake claim Pamela had made. I asked for an incident number so the record was official. Greg accepted the packet and assigned an incident number on the spot. He also announced that the board was voting to change the enforcement procedures so residents could not be railroaded by a single member acting alone. Going forward, all enforcement actions would require majority board approval and a mandatory 14-day cure period. Immediate stop work orders would only be issued with a licensed safety inspection. Pamela sat in the corner with her arms crossed. She did not say a word. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Someone had recorded the confrontation between Pamela and the surveyor and posted it online. The video showed Pamela trying to bump the tripod and the surveyor shutting her down. The comments were brutal. Residents shared their own stories of fake violations, harassment, and retaliation. The thread went on for days. At the next election, Pamela lost her board seat. The new board voted to audit every enforcement action she had taken over the past 2 years. Dozens of fines were reversed. Several residents received refunds. The management company issued a formal apology and updated the enforcement policy to include oversight and appeal protections. Pamela moved out of Rosewood Commons 6 months later. I saw the moving truck in her driveway one Saturday morning. She did not say goodbye. I kept the boundary certificate framed in my garage. Every time I walk past it, I remember the moment the surveyor unfolded that plat and proved she had been lying the whole time. It was not about rules, it was about control. And the moment she lost control, The whole system collapsed. The fence still stands, clean and straight, 8 inches inside my property line. The inspector signed off. The city approved it. The surveyor certified it. And Pamela White, the woman who screamed that the HOA owned the airspace, lost everything because she insisted it was an easement issue, and the recorded plat disproved it. The HOA changes hearing rules so residents cannot be railroaded. Karen gets placed on a no-contact directive by management, and a tow vendor refusing to act without proper authorization becomes the final proof that her fake authority was always just a bluff. Glad you were here for this one.